to the first baking class. My name is Melissa Maddux. I'm the Tribal Prevention Coordinator for Fort Independence Reservation. So today we'll be cooking an apple pie with fresh apples from the garden. And here are the supplies that you'll receive. So the first thing you'll receive in your kit is cinnamon, nutmeg, salt, and they'll be in these little tiny containers. They'll be pre-measured. You'll receive a measuring cup and spoon set, rolling pin, and actually more measuring spoons because this one only has a half teaspoon, this has 1/8 and 1/4 teaspoon. You'll also receive a peeler. This right here is for the canned milk, which you put on top of the pie. And you also receive a paring knife for the apples and some pie tins, maybe about 2 of them. You'll receive the flour in this container here. You'll also receive a mat that you can roll out your dough on. And you'll receive sugar also in a container like this. And then your kit should come in Ziploc bags. So the first process we're going to do is you're going to wash the apple. And we already pre-washed the apple for you, but we recommend that you would wash it again, possibly with a brush. So, you can kind of scrub the apple. Not too hard though. Kind of scrub it. Should be good enough. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to peel the apple. Now you can either peel it with a paring knife or you could use the peeler here, but I actually just use a knife. That's the first time I cut it with like that. So what I do is I cut the apple in 4 pieces, so I cut down and I cut it again. Now, of course you can't use this to get the seeds out, so you need to go back to the paring knife. The other thing you could do is you could use the apple core, which probably would make it a little bit easier, but this is the way I actually do it. Okay, so the next step, we're going to slice the apples. We're going to do it kind of thin, maybe about this thin, because they're kind of hard, the apples. We're going to slice the apples. Okay, so the thing with this right here, we're actually going to cut more apples than this. We're going to cut up about, I'd say about maybe 18 apples. Because at the end it's going to equal about 6 cups. for the apple pie. So after this, after we cut these slices, we're gonna go over here to the sink here.
It's gonna be about 10 minutes.
Now what I usually do is I actually use bottled water, but since we don't have no bottled water right now, we're gonna use some of this water here. And we're gonna soak the apples to keep it from getting brown, which it already is doing. After you cut it, it gets brown. So we're gonna soak the apples, and then we're gonna move to the next step, which would be the next step after cutting the apples into slices. Obviously you can see it's getting brown. We have to have a bigger bowl than that. And you're going to soak them in water. So then next we're going to come over here to the sink. Then we're going to strain some of it. Make sure you have like a strainer. Wash the apples. Usually I like to wash the apples in bottled water though. I'm not sure about the quality of this water. What you can do is then you get the pan. What I do, I kind of wash it like this to make sure there's no seeds in it. Be extra careful there's no seeds in it. So for the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to measure out these apples, and they should equal about 6 cups. So what we're going to do is just, you get your cup here, and try not to make it heaping. So we're going to have 6 cups, and we're going to put it into a pan that we're going to boil it on the stove. So the recipe calls for half a cup, but that, since the apples are a little sour, we're going to use 3/4. So I don't exactly see a 3/4 on here, so I got a 1 cup, and I think that should be about 3/4 right there. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to have 2 tablespoons of flour. This is only a half a tablespoon, but in your kit here, you should have 1 tablespoon here. So you're going to have your flour. You got to make sure you level it off as well. For the next step on the recipe, you're going to have cinnamon, which is 3/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, which you're also going to level off. So for the next and last thing, which I don't really put lemon juice, but if you want to, you can add a tablespoon of lemon juice, which I didn't include in your kit. So for the next and last step, we're going to have 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg. And then after you got that in there, you're going to grab a spoon and you're going to stir all that around. You're going to stir it around, and it should kind of create some kind of juice. But when you put it on the stove, you're going to put some water in it so it doesn't look so dry. Because it's not so dry. Okay, so for the next step, you're going to get it on the stove. You're going to put it on low. Usually I use a propane stove, but this is an electric stove, so I would put it in between low and 2 if you got an electric stove. And what you're going to do is you're going to put it on low so it doesn't burn. But usually you would put some water in it to make sure that it doesn't dry out, but I don't have any water right now. So we're gonna get it to a boil, and we're gonna keep cooking it until the apples are soft. And if you want to, you can also taste, taste the apples to see if it's soft enough. But we're not gonna get it so soft that it's gonna fall apart. We're just gonna get it soft enough so you can chew it. Just put a little bit of water, say about right there. So the next and last, well, not exactly the last step, what we're going to do is we're going to make the dough for the top and the bottom of the pie, which will go into one of these aluminum pans. Usually at home I use a glass pie tin, which is a little bit bigger, but we're going to go with this today. So we're going to measure out 2 cups of flour. And of course we're going to level it off. Then we're going to have, the next thing we're going to do is a half teaspoon of salt. Now it appears that I don't have a 1/4 teaspoon, so what we're going to do is we're going to use a 1/4 teaspoon, and we're going to do it twice to make the half. So make sure that you then we're going to stir that around. I know it's quite a big bowl, so you can be able to see what we're doing here. So make sure that you mix the flour and the salt. And then beforehand, what you're going to do is you're going to have your butter, and you're going to make sure that you have 1 cube of butter, and you're going to leave it out until it's soft. You squeeze it soft, but not like melting. You're not going to put it in the microwave. So then you put your butter in here. What I usually do is I get a fork, I cut it up here, butter. Do is you're going to press down on the fork, kind of get the butter, kind of break it up. If it's soft enough, it should be a bit broke up. It should break up pretty easily. So you're going to keep doing this process until you get the butter mixed up with the flour and the salt. So after you're done mixing it, it should look like this. And when you put it in your hand, you clump it together, it should sort of stick, crumble like that. So that's when you know it's done. So on the next and last step to do the pastry or the dough, we're going to have 7 tablespoons of hot water that we warmed up. During each tablespoon, you're going to mix it around. Another thing is, if it looks like that and it's kind of dry, it could be because your water might be not hot enough. You gotta make sure the water's hot enough, not cold, because it might not clump together.
Okay.
When you're done, it should look like this, and you're gonna get it into a ball. Dough should look like that. Okay, so we're gonna go over here. To know your pie pan, if your mat's not gonna look like this. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get some flour, and you're gonna put it all along the mat. What I do is I put a little bit here. What you're gonna do, cut it in half. Halves over here. I'm going to put it in the bowl again. Make sure you got enough flour. Press it down a little bit. Now you can try to get it kind of circular, but it might be impossible. So you're just going to start rolling it out. Now when you roll it out, you're going to make sure that it's the size, not exactly the size of the pan. See, that's a little too small. Roll it out a little bit more. Try to make it a little even, so the parts that are thick and the parts that are thin, they're kind of a little bit even. Of course, it's not going to actually be perfect, so that looks like it would fit in there. Maybe just a little bit more. So what you're going to do is you're going to get the dough right here, and you're going to put it, and you're going to roll it, hold on onto it. You're going to roll it, and you get your pie pan, and then you kind of hold the pie pan, and you're going to flip it in here. Now this obviously looks like a patchwork, so you're going to pull it from here and you're going to kind of patch it, because it's not going to look perfect. Unless you worked in a store, it would look perfect. Okay, so after the apples are done, and they're soft, but these are not exactly soft, because somebody wanted me to hurry them up. So we're going to put them in here, in the pie. Even them out. Now we're going to put this back over here. So we're going to move this aside, and we're going to get the last part of the dough. Obviously the water wasn't hot enough, because that's why you can see it's falling apart here. So the next step that you're going to do is you're going to place flour on the pie mat, and then you're going to roll out the dough and try to make it as circular as you can. Obviously not that quick. Once you have it to the shape that looks like a circle, you're going to get the pie pan with the apples in it, and you're going to measure to make sure that it fits over the top of the pie. So then you're going to get it from the bottom, you're going to hold, and you're going to hold the dough, and then you're going to roll it up. And obviously you can tell that the dough is kind of dry because we didn't use the right temperature of water, which should have been hot. So then you're going to slowly roll it on to the pie, making sure it's even. Then you're going to get both of the pastries, the top and the bottom, and you're going to roll it under on the whole thing. So you're going to roll it under until you get to the other part of the pie. Obviously it's not going to be perfect though. Okay, so what you can do from this last part, you could, if you'd like, you could press it down like this. Or what you can do is you can crimp it. It's called crimping. You get your two fingers and this thumb right here will go like this. So what you're going to do is you're going to get it, and it would look like this. You're going to crimp it all the way around. Like I said, you can press it down with a fork if you don't want to do the crimping part. What I do is I kind of redo it to make sure that it looks a little better than the last part. What you're going to do, well, the second to last part, is you're going to put a hole. I usually put 2 holes. Nothing too fancy. Unless you want to make the lattice, which is another step. Then you're going to get your can milk. And you're going, what better way to do it instead of putting it on the brush is just put a little bit on it. Try not to get it on the edges here because it'll burn it. Just kind of smear it around a little bit. But make sure that you don't put too much because then it'll look really brown in some portions. So then there you have your apple pie. So we're going to put it in the oven. And you're going to set it to 425 for 40 minutes, but I would say that you would need to set it for 425 and maybe about an hour. Well, not an hour, but you would have it. Depends if your oven's practically broken, then you would need to set it for longer. But if it's only 40 minutes, you would set it at 50 minutes. You would set it for 50 minutes to preheat it, to make sure your oven comes on. So this is what it should look like when it's close to being done. It looks pretty juicy.